Sakamoto Ryōma, Unified ideograph, Unified ideograph, Unified ideograph, Unified ideographic, the 3rd of January 1836, the 10th of December 1867 was a Japanese samurai and influential figure of the Bakumatsu and establishment of the Empire of Japan in the late Edo period. He was a low-ranking samurai from the Tosa domain on Shikoku and became an active opponent of the Tokugawa shogunate after the end of Japan's Shikoku isolationist policy. Ryōma under the alias Saitama Umedaro, Unified ideograph, Unified ideograph, Unified ideograph, Unified ideographa, Unified ideographs worked against the Bakufu, the government of the Tokugawa shogunate, and was often hunted by their supporters and the Shinsengumi. Ryōma advocated for democracy, Japanese nationalism, return of power to the imperial court, abolition of feudalism, and moderate modernization and industrialization of Japan. Ryōma successfully negotiated the Sacho alliance between the powerful rival Choshu and Satsuma domains and united them against the Bakufu. Ryōma was assassinated in December 1867 with his companion Nakahoko Shintaro, shortly before the Boshin War and the Meiji Restoration. Early life. Sakamoto Ryōma was born on the 3rd of January 1836 in Kochi in the Han domain of Tosa, located in Tosa Province, present-day Kochi Prefecture, on the island of Shikoku. By the Japanese calendar, Ryōma was born on the 15th day of the 11th month of the 6th year of Tenpo. The Sakamoto family held the rank of country samurai or goshi, the lowest rank in the samurai hierarchy, which previous generations had purchased by acquiring enough wealth as sake brewers. Unlike other Japanese domains, Tosa had to strictly enforce separation between the joshi, high-ranking samurai, and kashi, low-ranking samurai. The ranks were treated unequally and residential areas were segregated. Even in Sakamoto Ryōma's generation, the third in the Sakamoto family, his family's samurai rank remained kashi. At the age of 12, Ryōma was enrolled in a private school, but this was a brief episode in his life as he showed little scholarly inclination. Ryōma's older sister subsequently enrolled him in fencing classes of the Oguri when he was 14, after he was bullied at school. By the time Ryōma reached adulthood, he was by all accounts a master swordsman. In 1853, Ryōma was allowed by his clan to travel to Edo, the seat of the ruling Tokugawa shogunate and the de facto capital of Japan, to train and polish his skills as a swordsman. Ryōma enrolled as a student at the famous Akushin Ito Hyoho Chiba Dojo, which was led by its first headmaster Chiba Sadakichi Masamichi at that time. Ryōma received the scroll from the school that declared his mastery. Ryōma became a shin at the Chiba Dojo and taught kenjutsu to the students together with Chiba Jutaro Kazutain, in whom he found a close friend. Politics. Early Bakumatsu. In 1853, the Perry expedition began while Ryōma was studying and teaching in Edo, beginning the Bakumatsu period. Commodore Matthew C. Perry of the United States arrived in Japan with a fleet of ships to forcibly end the centuries-old Shikoku policy of national isolationism. In March 1854, Perry pressured the Tokugawa to sign the Convention of Kanagawa, officially ending the Shikoku policy but widely perceived in Japan as an unequal treaty and a sign of weakness. The prestige and legitimacy of the shogun, a de facto military dictator with nominal appointment from the Emperor of Japan, was severely damaged to the public. The convention was signed by the Rojo-Abe Masahiro, acting as regent for the young and sickly shogun Tokugawa Ieyasu, against the will of the imperial court in Kyoto, the Tajori ruling authority. Anti-Tokugawa considered this evidence the shogun could no longer fulfill the emperor's will, and therefore no longer fit to rule for him. Ryōma and many of the samurai class supported returning state power directly to the imperial court in Kyoto and began agitating for the overthrow of the Tokugawa shogunate. In 1858, Ryōma returned to Tosa after completing his studies, and became politically active in the local Sano-joi, the anti-Tokugawa movement that arose in the aftermath of the Convention of Kanagawa. In 1862, Ryōma's friend Takechi Hanpiida, or Takechi Zuzan, organized the Tosa Loyalist Party, Kinnodo, a Sanojoi organization of about 2,000 samurai, mostly from the lower rank, with the political slogan, "Revere the Emperor, expel the barbarians," that insisted on the reform of the Tosa government. Yamauchi Toyoshige, the daimyo, lord of the Tosa domain, refused to recognize the group. In response, Tosa Kinnodo plotted to assassinate Yamauchi's governor, Yoshida Toyo, who was appointed as a reformer and modernizer. Yoshida was later assassinated by the Tosa Kinnodo after Ryōma had left Tosa. Ryōma participated in the plot but did not advocate. He believed Tosa Kinnodo should do something for all of Japan, while Takechi demanded a revolution for only the Tosa clan. Ryōma decided to separate from Takechi and leave Tosa without authorization. In those days, no one in Japan was permitted to leave their clan without permission under the penalty of death, known as dappan. One of Ryōma's sisters committed suicide because he left without permission. Sakamoto would later use the alias Saitani Umetaro. Unified ideograph, unified ideograph, unified ideograph, unified ideographa, unified ideographs as he worked against the shogun. Ryōma is mentioned under this alias in the diary of Ernest Satow. For the 30th of September 1867, Mr. Saitani had to be sat up for laughing at the questions put by us, evidently with the object of ridiculing us out of our case, but he got a flea in his lug and shut up making the most diabolical faces. Late Bakuimatsu while a ronin, Ryōma decided to assassinate Katsukaishu, a high-ranking official in the Tokugawa shogunate and a supporter of both modernization and westernization. However, Katsukaishu persuaded Ryōma of the necessity of a long-term plan to increase Japan's military strength in the face of Western influence that led to the Convention of Kanagawa. Instead of killing Katsukaishu, Ryōma started working as his assistant and protege. In 1864, as the Tokugawa shogunate began taking a hard line against dissenters, Ryōma fled to Kagoshima in Satsuma domain, which was developing as a major center for the anti-Tokugawa movement. In 1866, Ryōma successfully negotiated the secret Sacho alliance between the Satsuma and Choshu, two powerful domains that historically had been irreconcilable enemies. Ryōma's position as a neutral outsider was critical in bridging the gap in trust and ending the feud, and accomplished the establishment of a significant military alliance against the Tokugawa. Ryōma is often regarded as the father of the Imperial Japanese Navy, as he worked under Katsukaishu's direction toward creating a modern naval force, with the aid of Western powers, to enable Satsuma and Choshu to hold their own against the naval forces of the Tokugawa shogunate. Ryōma founded the private navy and trading company Kamiyama Shochu in Nagasaki City with the help of the Satsuma, which later became Keitai or Ocean Support Fleet. Choshu's subsequent victory over the Tokugawa army in 1866 and the impending collapse of the Tokugawa shogunate made Ryōma a valuable commodity to his former masters in Tosa, and recalled to Kochi with honors. The Tosa domain was anxious to obtain a negotiated settlement between the shogun and the emperor, which would prevent the powerful Sacho alliance from overthrowing the Tokugawa by force and thus emerging as a new dominant force in ruling Japan. Ryōma again played a crucial role in the subsequent negotiations that led to the voluntary resignation of the shogun Tokugawa Yoshinobu in 1867, thus bringing about the Meiji Restoration. Death. Ryōma was assassinated at the Omiya Inn Omiya in Kyoto on the 10th of December 1867, not long before the Meiji Restoration took place, at the age of 31. At night, assassins gathered at the door of the inn. One approached and knocked, acting as an ordinary caller. The door was answered by Ryōma's bodyguard and manservant, a former sumo wrestler, who told the stranger he would see if Ryōma was accepting callers at that hour of the evening. When the bodyguard turned his back, the visitor at the door drew his sword and slashed his back, which became a fatal wound. The team of assassins rushed over and past the dying sumo wrestler and up the stairs to the guest rooms. Ryōma and Nakaoka Shintaro were resting in one room talking. Hearing the scuffle on the first floor, Ryōma opened the door to yell at his bodyguard, thinking he was wrestling with a friend. The assassins charged the room, some tearing through the paper doors, shoji, and a confused melee ensued as lamps were knocked over and the room went dark. By the end of the fight, both Ryōma and Shintaro lay badly wounded, and the assassins fled. Ryōma died that night, regretting with his last words that his assassins caught him unprepared. Shintaro died 2 days later. The night of the assassination was eventually called the Omiya Incident. According to the traditional lunar calendar, Ryōma was born on the 15th day of the 11th month, and killed on his birthday in 1867. Initial reports of Ryōma's and Shintaro's deaths accused members of the Shinsengumi, a special police force of swordsmen of the Bakufu, Tokugawa military government based in Kyoto. Shinsengumi leader Kondo Izumi was later executed on this charge. However, members of another pro-shogun group, the Mimawarigumi, confessed to the murder in 1870. Although Mimawarigumi members Sasaki Tadasuburo, Unified ideograph, ideographic iteration mark, Unified ideograph, Unified ideographia, Unified ideograph, Unified ideographs, and Imai carry the blame. The identity of the true assassin has never been proven. Okuda Machiagoro, who is known by working since his early adolescence as a spy for Kondo, was rumored to have taken part in the assassination. Legacy. Ryōma was a visionary who dreamt of an independent Japan without feudalism or the caste system, inspired by the example of the United States where all men are created equal. Ryōma was an admirer of democratic principles and studied democratic governance, particularly the United States Congress and British Parliament, as a model for the governance of Japan after the Restoration. Ryōma argued that after centuries of having little to no political power, the imperial court lacked the resources and wherewithal to run the country. Ryōma wrote the 8 Proposals while shipboard. Left white corner bracket, Unified ideograph, Unified ideographed, Unified ideograph, Unified ideograph, right white corner bracket while discussing the future model of Japanese government with Goto Shojiro on board the Tosa ship outside Nagasaki in 1867. Ryōma outlined the need for a democratically elected bicameral legislature, the writing of a constitution, the formation of a national army and navy, and the regulation of the exchange rates of gold and silver. Ryōma read about the Western world and realized that for Japan to compete with an industrially and technologically advanced outside world, the Japanese people needed to modernize. Ryōma's proposals are thought to form the basis for the subsequent parliamentary system implemented in Japan after his death. Ryōma has also been seen as an intriguing mix of the traditional and modern, symbolized by his preference for samurai dress while favoring Western footwear. Ryōma has been heavily featured and romanticized in Japanese popular culture. Honors in modern times. On the 15th of November 2003, the Kochi airport was renamed the Kochi Ryōma Airport in his honor. There is a Sakamoto Ryōma Memorial Museum, Unified ideograph, Unified ideograph, Unified ideographed, Unified ideographic, Unified ideographa, Unified ideograph, Unified ideograph south of Kochi, with a large bronze statue of Ryōma overlooking the sea. The city of Kochi has a number of Ryōma-themed attractions and locations, including the Sakamoto Ryōma Birthplace Memorial, and the Sakamoto Ryōma Hometown Museum, dedicated to showing what downtown Kochi was like during Ryōma's childhood, including relevant aspects that may have influenced his views. On the 15th of November 2009, the Hokkaido Sakamoto Ryōma Memorial Museum was built in Hokkaido, Hokkaido. Asteroid 2835 Ryōma is named after him. Asteroid 5823 Oryo is named after his wife. Family. Parents. Father Yaei, Imina Naotari, Mother Sachi stepmother. Eio brother. Ganbei, the elder sisters. Chitsu, the eldest. Ei, the second. Tome, the third wife. Narazaki Ryo, commonly called Ario, child. Taro, adopted child, Chitsu's child. In popular culture, in April 2010 Japan Times article wrote, Ryōma has inspired at least 7 television drama series, 6 novels, 7 manga and 5 films. Actor Masaharu Fukuyama said that Ryōma's appeal stems from being the kind of person onto whom anyone can project themselves. When describing his role as Ryōma in the NHK drama Ryōmaiden. Sakamoto Ryōma is a principal character in the manga and subsequent 2009 TBS series Jin. He was portrayed by Sayo Uchino. Sakamoto is a recurring character in the NHK taiga drama, Zinsengumi. He is portrayed as a friend of Kondo as Amy since their younger days. In the drama he is assassinated by Sasaki Tadasuburo and the Warigumi. In NHK's taiga drama Segodan, Sakamoto Ryōma is portrayed by actor Shun Ogiuri.in the video game Ryuji Gotoku Ishin. The second samurai-themed spin-off to the Yakuza video game series, Sakamoto Ryōma is the main protagonist. He is voiced by and modeled after actor Takaya Kuroda. Sakamoto appears in the historical manga Shura no Toki, which was later adapted into the anime, Mutsune Mario Gaiden, Shura no Toki. In addition, he also makes appearances, with varying levels of historical accuracy, in numerous other manga, anime, and video games. Jiri-en wrote a song about what Sakamoto would be like in the modern world. The song is titled, Sakamoto. Sakamoto Ryōma appears as a playable character in the mobile game Fate Grand Order as a 4-star rarity, super rare rider class servant. He was first introduced into the game in June 2018 through the event known as Guda Guda Legend of the Imperial Capital Grail Far East Demonic Front 1945. His character design and sprite features his wife, Narazaki Ryo, floating beside him. He has also made appearances in another Fate media, in the manga Fate Kohache, and later in its revised adaptation, Fate Type Red Line. Also Sakamoto Ryōma appears as a rival for players in App Hanafuda game Bakuimatsu Hanafuda. Players battle with Ryōma and his old sister Sakamoto Otome. Gallery. See also Goto Shojiro List of Unsolved Murders Ryōma Ansatsu, 1974 film depicting Ryōma's last 3 days. Shusui Kotoku The Top 100 Historical Persons in Japan. Notes. References. Beasley, William G. 1972. The Meiji Restoration. Stanford University Press. ISBN 0804708150, ISBN 9780804708159. OCLC 579232. Jensen, Marius B., and Gilbert Rosman, eds. 1986. Japan in Transition. From Tokugawa to Meiji. Princeton University Press. ISBN 0691054592, ISBN 9780691054599. OCLC 123119885. Jensen, Marius B. 1961. Sakamoto Ryōma and the Meiji Restoration. Princeton University Press. OCLC 413111. External links: the Sakamoto Ryōma Memorial Museum in Kochi, in Japanese. Hokkaido Sakamoto Ryōma Memorial Museum, in Japanese. Nagasaki Kamiyamashachu Memorial Museum, in Japanese. Kyoto National Museum 2005. Sakamoto Ryōma Exhibitions 2010 NHK Taiga Drama Exhibitions Ryōma, in Japanese. Edo Tokyo Museum 2010 NHK Taiga Drama Exhibitions Ryōma. The Museum of Kyoto 2010 NHK Taiga Drama Exhibitions Ryōma. Kochi Prefectural Museum of History 2010 NHK Taiga Drama Exhibitions Ryōma. Nagasaki Museum of History and Culture 2010 NHK Taiga Drama Exhibitions Ryōma. Nagasaki Museum of History and Culture Ryōma Ken 2010, in Japanese. National Diet Library Electronic Library Kanketsu Senri no Koma, in Japanese. National Diet Library Biography and Photo National Diet Library Shinsei for Koryo Hasaku Japan Mint. Sakamoto Ryōma 2007 Proof Coin Set, in Japanese. Shot on Type.com about Sakamoto Ryōma, in Japanese. Jiri N, left corner bracket Sakamoto, right corner bracket